You're listening to the Music Educator podcast with your host, Bill Stevens, the 21st century music educator man.
Podcasting from beautiful Leesburg, Virginia. Welcome to the Music Educator podcast, bringing you the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. Here's your host and fellow music educator, Bill Stevens.
Welcome to another episode of the Music Educator Podcast. My name is Bill Stevens. I will be your host for today, and I'm so excited that you're here. It is such a treat to enjoy this experience with you. In today's episode, Season 4, Episode 28, we have a checklist for improving brass instrument performance. Let's do this. Checklist for improving brass instrument performance. The brass musician. What is the brass musician to do if he or she expects to fully develop his or her musical abilities? To gracefully perform with technical facility, tonal beauty, and musical taste is what we plan to answer in today's checklist for improving brass instrument performance. Factors to consider. The factors to consider when working to become a performing brass professional can seem broad in spectrum and be minimally effective if strategic practice isn't used. In this episode, we will identify the most accepted and highly regarded recommendation prioritizing the most important skills to master. All factors to consider, elements of tone production and technical execution should be in every daily practice routine. Individuals' practice time should be divided into older problems that may need to be reviewed and revisited, and new ones that may be attacked intelligently. Problems facing brass players. Now, everyone is different, so logically, each player has their own set of problems. However, it has been found that the main issues brass players face include, number 1, posture. Number 2, breath control. Number 3, tone production. Number 4, finger and slide technique. Number 5, lip flexibility. Number 6, dynamics. Number 7, range. And number 8, intonation. Consider focusing significant and regular effort on these performance elements in order to see steady improvement of your playing. Posture. Posture is first on the list of issues, or checkpoints, that brass performers need to master sooner rather than later. Bad posture will serve as a crutch in most other attempts to improve other musical elements. However, the reverse is true as well. With good posture, other musical elements are easier to improve upon due to the kinesthetic-oriented alignments. Keep in mind that when striving for excellent posture as a brass player, to do the following. Number 1, stand straight but relaxed, with weight on the balls of the feet. Number 2, sit straight, but relaxed. Number 3, keep your head up. And number 4, practice exercises which tend to strengthen the back and the stomach muscles. In addition, you want these exercises to also reinforce a relaxed spine and neck. Breath control. Breath control is an element of playing that is absolutely a game changer. Breath control can determine the tone quality, phrasing capabilities, and the overall performance composure of a brass performer. Treat breath control exercises as a daily part of your warm-up routine to see steady growth. Consider the following steps when homing in on your breath control isolation measures. Number 1, yawn several times to relax thoroughly. Number 2, breathe deeply several times. Note your diaphragmatic breathing by placing your hands on the bottom of your ribs. There should be an expansion and contraction in the back, front, and sides. Number 3, when you breathe, use an open throat and relax your jaw. Number 4, inhale only the amount of air you need to play the desired tone or phrase. However, leave just a small amount in reserve. And number 5, do not force air out with stomach muscles, chest, or ribs. The diaphragm should naturally expel the air. There should only be an exception to this when a tone is to be expected to be accented and a sudden push of air is necessary. Tone production. Tone production is my number one most important element that I am concerned with as a brass musician. Think about it. If you can play with a good tone, you will often have a good quality of sound. However, if you have a poor tone production, you will always have a bad sound. When working on tone production, consider doing the following. Number one, have a clear conception of what a good characteristic tone is by listening to professional performing artists in the field. Number two, listen to examples of what quality tone sounds like and use digital recorders, chromatic tuners, and software to assist in trying to emulate that sound. Number three, consider using these practice measures to obtain a clear and resonant tone. First, find the center of the tone by experimenting with the pitch to the most resonant sound. Sing the tone. Buzz the tone on your mouthpiece. Play the center of the tone again on the instrument. Number four, use the following practice drills to improve intervals. Sing scales, arpeggios, intervals, exercises, and solos. Buzz them on the mouthpiece. Play them on the instrument, and sing, buzz, and play octave intervals. Number five, attack each tone using the tongue accurately. Place the tip of the tongue high on the front teeth. Seal off all air with the tongue. Keep a steady flow of air to the mouthpiece at all times. Start the tone by lowering the tongue quickly and releasing the air. Practice single, double, and triple tonguing. And do not stop tone with the tongue, stop the breath with the diaphragm. Number six, form the embouchure correctly. Place the lips together naturally. Place the mouthpiece on the fleshy part of the lips. Check lip vibration by buzzing the mouthpiece. Do not use excessive mouthpiece pressure. Place the mouthpiece near the center of the mouth. Comfort and satisfactory results govern exact location. Moisten the lips and develop lip flexibility by practicing lip slurs and rapid interval changes. Number seven, produce long tones for several seconds of duration with no change in the pitch or quality. Number eight, produce long tones of several seconds of duration using a controlled vibrato. Number nine, shape the mouth to different vowel sounds in order to secure desired quality. Number 10, use quality equipment, instruments, and mouthpieces. And finally, number 11, keep equipment in good playing condition. Keep it clean and check it regularly for leaks. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Do you have an idea for a great new podcast? You can bring your idea to life and start your podcast today with Libsyn. Our podcast has been with Libsyn for about 3 years now, and we love it. Libsyn has everything you need to plan, launch, and grow your own podcast. Libsyn provides some of the best resources created by expert podcasters who will show you everything you need to know, like what equipment you should use, how to record great audio, how to get your show on Apple Podcasts and other popular platforms, and much more. Plus, as a friend of the Music Educator podcast, when you sign up with Libsyn, you get your first month of podcast hosting for free. There has never been a better time than right now for you to start podcasting. Visit Libsyn.com and use code FRIEND, FRIEND. That's Libsyn, LIBSYN.com, and use code FRIEND, FRIEND, to get started and create your podcast today. And now back to the show. Finger and slide technique. Finger and slide technique is a skill developed through focused practice. The results received from such practice relies heavily on the attention to detail of how the kinesthetic practice is implemented and the series of repetitions it receives. When working on finger and slide technique, consider the following steps. Number 1, memorize your scales. These include the major scales, all three forms of minor, chromatic, and the whole tone scale. Execute these scales as rapidly as precision will allow. If at all possible, play 2-octave scales, both slurred and tongued. Number 2, as mentioned previously, follow the same procedure for playing all arpeggios and intervals as well. And number 3, practice any series of tones that present difficulty in fingering or slide technique. Lip flexibility. Lip flexibility comes hand in hand with air control and finger and slide technique. The key is to be able to play through exercises and musical gestures that sync pitches with the rhythms and styles. To obtain greater competency in lip flexibility, consider the following. Number 1, to start, first follow the suggestions we discussed for developing finger or slide technique. Number 2, next, practice lip slurs, start slowly and gradually increase in speed. And number 3, finally, practice octave intervals, slurred and tongued. A great resource for this can be found in the Arben's Complete Method books under the intervals section. Dynamics. Now, dynamics help make any piece of literature interesting. Air control and specific muscles are needed to be actively engaged in dynamic mastery. Consider using the following steps to practice in order to observe noticeable gains. Number 1, engage your efforts to produce the following effects. Starting in sequence, on a single tone, pianissimo to piano, to mezzo piano, to mezzo forte, to forte, to fortissimo. Next, in sequence, fortissimo to forte, to mezzo piano, and then pianissimo. Next sequence, fortissimo to pianissimo. And finally, pianissimo to fortissimo. Number 2, next, produce the following effects, holding any one tone for several seconds and maintaining a steady pitch. Piano to forte, forte to piano, pianissimo to fortissimo, back to pianissimo, then fortissimo to pianissimo to fortissimo, and then forte to piano. And in this last situation, diminish quickly from the forte to the piano and hold the tone. And then piano to forte. In this scenario, hold the soft tone and then push quickly with the breath just before releasing the tone. Number 3, finally, use a variety of dynamic ranges when practicing your scales and arpeggios. Range. Range is a musical element that many players often get hung up on. Expecting unrealistic results without putting in the proper amount of focused practice time into range building can be detrimental to your well-being. Consider taking these steps for a healthy approach to range building. Number 1, maintain an awareness of a matched tone quality throughout the entire range of your instrument. Number 2, improve your high range by doing the following: maintaining breath support, opening the jaw and throat, keeping a cushion of lips between the mouthpiece and the teeth, avoiding excessive mouthpiece pressure, raising the tongue slightly to form the vowel sound of to or do, beginning the tone precisely through the valve action of the tongue in releasing the air, tonguing and slurring all scales, arpeggios, and intervals, psychologically thinking of attacking tones from above, and forming the lips close together. Number 3, improve your low range by doing the following: extending the jaw slightly, pushing the embouchure forward slightly, opening the lips more, using less mouthpiece pressure, using the ta or da syllables, and beginning the tone precisely through the valve action of the tongue in releasing the air. Intonation. Intonation development is a major component of any professional musician's daily work efforts. The slight nuances in a person's ability to have an ever so better intonation than a competitor could easily determine the results of a professional audition. When working on improving brass intonation, consider taking these initiatives. Number 1, practice hearing the tone in your head before producing it. Number 2, sing and buzz on the mouthpiece to new music before playing it. Number 3, use the strobe or chromatic tuner and check pitches carefully. And number 4, discover the pitches that are out of tune on the instrument. Be sure to make the necessary adjustments as automatic as possible. One highly recommended resource for identifying instrumental intonation issues is Shelley Jago's Tuning for Wind Instruments, a roadmap to successful intonation book. Conclusion. In conclusion, by prioritizing your daily brass practice efforts, you will observe gradual and satisfying results. The elements of posture, breath control, tone production, finger/slide technique, lip flexibility, dynamics, range, and intonation all contribute to a beautiful brass performance. That is all the time we have for today. I want to thank you once again for joining me for another episode of the Music Educator Podcast. It is a true pleasure to share this craft with lovers of music and educators just like you. If you found value in today's episode, please feel free to leave a review and rate us on the Music Educator Podcast app, Apple Podcasts, or any other podcast aggregator. Also, please consider supporting the show by becoming an official Music Educator Podcast member or advertise with us on the podcast. Information for this can be found in the show notes. Thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you join us next time. Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Music Educator Podcast. For the latest tips, tricks, and practical advice you can use tomorrow. You can subscribe to our podcast on every podcast aggregator or download the Music Educator app for free in the Apple or Google Play app stores. Furthermore, visit our blog at www.bandbuzz.org for additional music education resources. We will see you on the next episode of the Music Educator Podcast. And remember, music can change the world.
Hey everybody, it's Bill Stevens with the Music Educator Podcast. See this episode's show notes for a unique promo code from the Music Educator Podcast to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn. Get your show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, anywhere you want. Get critical stats to help you grow, find all the tools and support you need to sound your very best. You can even do video. Really, bring your podcast to life with Libsyn. See the show notes for a unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.